You're asking, are we intimidated by them?
Yeah, is there anything that affects you?
Nah.
And everybody will make it about a revenge and all that. It's not really about that for us.
I don't know, but as soon as I get out of here, I'll call Kirby and tell them exactly what we're going to do, so they would be able to prepare for that. And
Aerial views of the majestic Mercedes-Benz Stadium, home of the 27th annual Southeastern Conference Football Championship game. Will the Dogs repeat, or will the Tide roll for the 5th time in 7 years? We're about an hour and a half from kickoff. This is the SEC Championship pregame show.
WALB News 10 Sports presents the Road to the Championship SEC pregame show. Brought to you by Tough Truckin'.
Smack from the heart of downtown Atlanta. For John Barron, I'm Theo Dorsey. South Georgia, let's talk sports. The SEC was the first of the Power 5 conferences to adapt a championship game back in '92. And it's perennially the most exciting.
Yeah, and Theo, and that doesn't change here this afternoon. Now, this game can go a long way in shaping how the college football playoffs will go. And speaking of, let's go ahead and take a look at where those teams stand heading into Championship Saturday. Alabama's been the wire-to-wire #1. Can they lose today and remain in the top 4? Clemson claims the 2nd spot as they prepare to play Pitt in the ACC title game. The 3rd undefeated team is Notre Dame, which sits comfortably at the 3rd seed. And the coveted 4th spot is occupied by Georgia. Losing today is not an option.
Well, John, also now let's take a look at how these teams got here. Of course, these are 2 championship contenders, and they've been that way from the jump, being the 2 teams that fought for it last year. But Georgia had it much like they did last season. Last season, they came into the championship game with 1 loss on their record against Auburn. This year, they ran the table except for that 1 game in Death Valley, John.
Absolutely. That double-digit loss to LSU really hurt them and set them back on their goal to get right back here. But they've found their way. They crawled their way back into the top 4, and now they find themselves right back here in the SEC championship title game.
It's the next game for us. I mean, for us, it's we've been thinking about the next game, the next game, the next game. It's the next game for us. So we're focused on Alabama now moving forward, and what a tremendous opportunity, great program, great team. They've got, I mean, we know how good they are. We played them less than a year ago, so we know they got a good football team, and they do a good job. We're excited about representing the SEC East and go over to Atlanta and play.
Their fate is in their own hands now because no 2-loss team has ever made the college football playoffs, but just like they did last year, they can get their way in with an SEC championship. And as for Alabama, well, the Tide just kept on rolling. They were the #1 team in the AP when the season started, and that never changed. They were the #1 team in the college football playoff initial rankings, and that hasn't changed. They're undefeated. No team has come close to beating them or challenging them. Nick Saban's team sitting comfortably at the top of the SEC. But again, last year they didn't win the SEC championship. This year, they're looking to add that onto their resume.
Absolutely, and they didn't win the SEC championship, but they still found themselves in that college playoffs. And now, this is a big difference. They're here at the SEC title game. If they lose, like we said, can they find themselves back in the college football playoffs? But we don't know. We'll have to see.
We'll have to see if that's in the cards. Of course, they're not going to want to have to play that hand. They'll try and keep it wire-to-wire #1.
for the team to go undefeated is quite an accomplishment, but it really doesn't mean anything if we can't take advantage of the opportunity that we have, next week in the SEC championship game. And, obviously Georgia's a very, very good team.
I know that the fans and the media definitely gonna hype it up. I heard some people calling it the rematch or whatever, but we just gonna go out there and try to execute. We didn't play our best game last year against them, so we trying to capitalize on every aspect of the game the next time around.
I'm not too focused on any of these awards right now. We still got another game, the SEC championship. All of those we can worry about all of those later.
Well, John, as we both know, not everyone is a Georgia fan or an Alabama fan. So for those South Georgia fans of football who are going to be watching and you don't really have a rooting interest, well, I'm going to help you out with that. Now, Alabama has no players from the 229, but Georgia has plenty, most of them on the defensive side of the football. Let's take a look, and we'll start with the impact players. Number 52, Tyler Clark, and number 84, Walter Grant. America's native Tyler Clark starts at defensive tackle. He has 25 total tackles, 4 for a loss, 3 passes batted down, a sack, and a fumble recovery through 12 games this season. Linebacker Walter Grant is from Cairo. He's got 19 total tackles in his 2nd year in Athens. Now then there's the true freshman crop, Crisp County native Quay Walker. He sees time sparingly at linebacker. He has 6 stops on the season. Also, Lee County native Otis Reese has seen some time in 9 games. He has 13 total tackles on the year. And then Albany native Garrett Jones and Dawson native Trey Bishop also in the lineup or on the roster, but have not yet seen any time this season.
Now here's how the two teams stack up against each other. The only offense in the nation that scores at a higher clip than Alabama is Oklahoma, the Tide scoring 49 points per game. Meanwhile, Georgia comes in at 13th in the nation, just over 40. Both teams are traditionally defensive-minded, but expect points on the board. Georgia has the edge in the running game, but Bama has done it through the air.
Now, of course, the last time Dogs fans stepped into this building to watch their team play, they left with some bad memories. But right after this break, we're going to talk about why Dogs fans have some optimism coming into the SEC championship game, in a game where they want to exact some revenge on the Tide. Welcome back to the show here from Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We moved to have the Falcon in the background, a nice backdrop for as we get closer and closer to kickoff for the SEC Championship, Alabama versus Georgia. Now, John, the last time these two faced off in an SEC Championship game was 2012. The past 10 SEC title games, they haven't really been close. All of them been double-digit margins, and the odds makers are making it right on that line. But, John, there was one game that was different than all of those last ones.
Absolutely. The last time that Georgia and Alabama faced each other, right here in Atlanta at the Georgia Dome in the 2012 SEC Championship title game. Like you said, those odds makers definitely have done their homework. They have Alabama at a 10-point favorite heading into this game.
Yeah, John, so we went to the Georgia media availability in Athens this week, and one of the keys they said was stopping Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, especially Michael Barnett stressed on that. They said if they want to make sure that they secure a victory here today, that they need to rattle Tua. He's been very comfortable. He holds the number 5 offensive line right in front of him. They've only allowed 16 sacks this entire season, so they're definitely going to have to do that job. And he said that he and his boys are ready for it.
You just kind of play your game, you know, you don't try to do too much, you know, don't try to go out the way, everyone just does their job. You know, you get a good trap around the quarterback, make sure he doesn't get out the pocket in any escape lanes, and then make sure your coverage is just tight, man. You really just got to have A1 coverage and make sure rush and coverage are working together, and just to make sure everybody's on the same page.
I feel like if we just collapse the pocket and get in his face, I feel like that should rattle him a little bit, because I feel like our DBs can't cover the whole play, so I feel like we just need to, like, put pressure on them and get them early. So, I mean, they're doing their job. We have to do our job as well.
And that's going to be a tough task for this defense to accomplish. They're coming in second to last, just above South Carolina, with only having 20 sacks this season. So it's definitely going to be a tall order for them, especially against such a tough offensive line.
A tall order, but one that Kirby Smart is going to try to turn up the pressure and have his dogs ready for on a day where they're really needed this afternoon against that Bama Tide offense. Now, this Georgia offense has been powered by a running game that has been superb, and that's a pretty good sign, John, because what Georgia's trying to do this afternoon is something that they haven't done since 1982, and that's repeat as SEC champions. You know who was in the backfield that time?
Herschel Walker.
Herschel Walker was a pretty good running back himself. Some would say maybe the best of all time in the college football ranks. But for Georgia, right now they have a dual back system similar to what they had last year when they had Sony Michel and they had Nick Chubb. This year is Elijah Holyfield, and they got a man named DeAndre Swift who also gets through the line and makes big plays for that Dogs offense and takes some of the pressure off of Jake Fromm. He loves that. So Holyfield and Swift are going to have to come up big this afternoon if the Dogs are going to want to power their way to an SEC championship.
Yeah, I feel like we both done. All of us have done a really, really good job this year, and I feel like we've gotten better throughout the year. And you know, this is the time where where you can really make it. You know, you really can make it, make yourself a name.
A big physical run game. It not only helps open up the pass game, it helps late in the game, helps control the clock, helps the defense. A good running game just helps play football.
I think they're different, in the way their style of running. But both are very effective in the way they run. I think their offensive line deserves a ton of credit for the way they've sort of developed and the effectiveness of their running attack. They're ferocious competitors, and both have been very, very productive. So probably as good a duo of guys that we've seen all year long.
Well, of course, Theo, as you know, maybe not too much. I don't know if you were in the backfield running around anytime soon, but as every great running back always credits their offensive line for the games and runs they produce. Now, for Swift and Holyfield, I'm sure that it's no different. These two know that it all starts up front.
Yeah, John, they know that they can't make their breaks up the field if rivers aren't parted, like the seas that Moses got parted for him, so that they can run just through gaping holes. And that's what this offensive line has provided them all year. And you see this at all levels of football. Running backs and quarterbacks credit the men in the trenches for all of the success that they have. They know that it starts up front. And Swift Holyfield, that's no different with them.
Yeah, and, as we talked about a little bit, they've got a bright future. Fromm and Fields have only been sacked 16 times this season. Now, of course, they would always love for that number to be lower.
Yep.
But the Dogs are young up front. Now, 8 of the 17 offensive linemen are freshmen. And 13 of those 17 are underclassmen. So Jake Fromm says that they continue to improve as the year continues on and knows that they have a bright future for this young offense.
I think we're executing as an offense better. We're playing cleaner together. We're doing a lot better on third down. So anytime you convert on third down, you're staying on the field, and that just ultimately leads to scoring more points. So we're excited about where we're going. Hopefully we can keep it up and continue to get better.
Well, somebody else is definitely coming into their own is quarterback Jake Fromm. Now, he stressed how much this game means to Georgia and the opportunity to get back-to-back SEC titles, but he also said that he's ready for this task, he's ready for the challenge, and he can't wait to be playing pretty much in his backyard.
It really is cool. Just kind of have the big screen up there. The turf, playing in Atlanta, feels like it's in your backyard. So definitely we kind of feel like we have a home field advantage with that, and it's fun. The locker rooms are great. It's just a great atmosphere.
Well, the Fromm under center, it's always a safe bet for the Dogs, of course, but there's also another name that has been circulating around Athens Steel, and that's Justin Fields, the Kennesaw native. He's only a freshman and has been just proving himself time and time again this entire season as a viable option.
Well, I've seen it with my own eyes. The guy's an incredible athlete, and he can throw the ball, and of course he's a viable option. He was one of the most coveted recruits in this past Georgia recruiting class. Kirby Smart been giving him plenty time on the season to get some reps in, even in some pivotal games. And that's much like Bama has been doing this entire season with Jalen Hurts and Tua. The Dogs have really taken that dual quarterback role that Fields and Fromm seem to share, even though later in the year it seems like Fields' touches have gone down some. I wouldn't be shocked to see him get some run in this SEC championship.
Absolutely. I'm pretty sure that will have no question about it as soon as this game starts to come. It's going to be here in a few minutes. But, of course, we'll see what happens because I'm pretty sure they will try to transfer it over with Fields. But he seems to continue to receive more reps, and Fromm knows how Fields forces him to strive for more.
He's a great football player, great dude. Comes in and works every day, so definitely pushing me, competing with me, and it definitely makes me throw some better balls at practice, and he does a great job.
John, just like you and I are, Georgia fans are pumped for the kickoff, and they have been ever since they realized the Dogs will be representing the East in the SEC Championship. I actually talked to one fan at the Georgia Tech game to finish the regular season off. We'll take a listen from him.
And then we'll come right back and we'll talk even more SEC pregame when we come back.
Everything they have, we have something for that. And nobody else had the answer. The Dogs got the answer. You understand what I'm saying? We got the answer.
From the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, South Georgia, let's talk sports. And no, I'm not sitting back relaxing on the job. I'm just early for tailgating for the SEC Championship in Atlanta. Of course, we had to come out here and get a look at where fans build up their excitement and anticipation for Georgia versus Alabama for the crown in the SEC. Now, of course, Georgia took down Georgia Tech in the final game of the regular season. While I was there getting highlights, since the game wasn't really that close, I got up in the stands and talked to some of those Georgia fans that said they'll be coming out here to Atlanta to make sure they see their Dogs fight for the crown.
I think we got a chance, man. I think Kirby's got a couple curveballs up his sleeve. I think Bama's D is starting to get solid. But our offense is too. We're starting to gel, so I think we got a chance.
At the College Football Hall of Fame, a place in Atlanta that many fans have probably already visited, and some that haven't, I'm sure, will come on in just like John did here. You thought I was going to do it without him. I'm not. Of course, John, this is the block where we're going to talk a little bit about Alabama football. And what makes them so special, man?
Well, that's definitely who's ever under center. Right now, nobody knew how to say his name last year, but ever since that 2nd and 26, they have just been screaming his name. Tua Tagovailoa. He would end up leading the Tide to their first playoff championship since 2015. Just a year later, people can't stop saying the name of the Heisman frontrunner. He's coming off that 6-touchdown game in that Iron Bowl blowout. Tua has 36 passing touchdowns this season with 2 interceptions and 5 scores on the ground.
We know that they're a really good defense. They're a really good team. They're very sound. We understand that they run kind of similar things, to what our defense runs. We do understand that this is a big game, and we're looking forward to the challenges that this game has.
Well, now that we're talking about Tua, Jake Fromm and Tua actually have a long history together. Now, I guess it's true what they say, greatness does recognize greatness, because Jake and Tua have a long history.
That's true, John, and they say this about so many of the sports in these days. It's almost like the AAU era, where players amongst basketball, baseball, even in football here, with all the travel ball, with all the 7-on-7s, these guys know each other. These guys grow up together, they have friendships, they have bonds, and those aren't broken just because they compete.
Yeah, me and Tua are really good friends. He's an awesome competitor, a really good football player, and a great follower of Jesus. So we met during the Elite 11 process when we were seniors in high school, and just kind of took off from there. I saw him this past May at a quarterback camp, but none this week, none recently. Just wishing him the best.
Now, of course, Tua can put an exclamation point on his Heisman candidacy with a big game in the SEC Championship with all eyes on him. Another person with an opportunity to put an exclamation point on their resume, well, Nick Saban, the coach at Alabama. No need in introducing this guy because everybody knows who he is, but Saban knows what's on the line here, not just an SEC Championship, but this guy's building a legacy, one that is unmatched so far.
Absolutely, and that's somebody that's no stranger to the SEC titles. He has 7, and now he's looking for the elite number 8.
We're excited about the opportunity that we have to play in the SEC championship game, and it's always a great competitive venue because you're always playing against a very highly ranked, talented team, and certainly no question about that when it comes to playing against Georgia, who is very sound in what they do and very well coached on both sides of the ball. It's going to be the biggest challenge we've had to date.
Now, while most of the focus has been on the offense, and rightfully so, the defense has stepped up and matched them throughout this season.
Absolutely. Ranked number 6 in the nation in yards allowed on defense. They hope to prove it here tonight.
Yeah, they do a great job of rushing the front of the pocket, and it is what it is. You come out, and my feet have to be quicker, progressions have to be quicker, and that's one thing I remember from last year. That definitely the front of the pocket's getting there a little bit faster, and they do a great job of it.
Now, as we get ready to leave the College Football Hall of Fame and get back to the bins, we're getting closer to kickoff.
And we'll be back after break.
Welcome back to the show as we inch closer and closer to the SEC Championship game. Georgia getting ready to take on Alabama in what will be a game for the crown of the SEC, and really what's the crown conference of college football in today's game. Now, there's been a different aura around Georgia football out in Athens ever since Kirby Smart was hired back in 2015.
Yeah, absolutely. In his 3 years, he's accumulated a record of 32-8, and obviously he's 1-0 when it comes to the SEC championship game. But in his 4 years that he played at UGA, he always wanted to come right here and get the chance to win a ring. Last year, he got that opportunity. Now he has another chance to add yet another ring to the case. Can he do it? We'll have to see here today.
It's not really about that for us. The media will make it that way, and everybody will make it about a revenge and all that. It's not really about that for us. It's a SEC East championship team going against an SEC West championship team playing in Atlanta for the SEC championship. And that's what it is. And obviously for a chance to continue on for somebody. But our team understands that. We've been on do or die playoff run since every game we've been playing. What's the difference?
Of course, Kirby Smart is a Bainbridge native, really the pride of Bainbridge, and he has some more South Georgia ties as well. He had some time at Valdosta State as a coach, and then Kirby Smart, of course, has many ties to Nick Saban, the guy he'll be going up against. We did the master versus pupil thing earlier on, talking about how Nick Saban has gone 15-0 against assistants, and Nick Saban took down Kirby Smart in last year's national championship. But the bond between these two coaches, because Kirby Smart followed him to 3 different places, is really strong, and Nick Saban has a very high respect for the Bainbridge native.
We're excited about the opportunity that we have to play in the SEC championship game, and it's always a great competitive venue because you're always playing against a very highly ranked, talented team, and certainly no question about that when it comes to playing against Georgia, who is very sound in what they do and very well coached on both sides of the ball. It's going to be the biggest challenge we've had to date.
Now we're in a better position. I think we're able to finish a lot better this season, and but still up in the air. I was asked about legacy over there, and there's no legacy unless we finish the right way, and so that's our focus. We play a really high quality opponent in Georgia, but we do feel that our destiny's in our hands, and the onus is on us to be able to prepare and be successful.
And thank you so much for joining us here right outside of Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta as we get ready for the SEC Championship game.
Absolutely, right here in Mercedes-Benz. Kickoff is scheduled for 4 o'clock, Alabama versus Georgia. We hope you guys enjoy the game. We'll see you next time.